Right, greetings, welcome back to the Philosophy Club here in the middle of France, in La Creuse. I've been away for 2 weeks in England, so we haven't had it for a while, but we're back here. And we're going to carry on with what we're doing, which is marrying up the gods from the Tarot of the Gods, which I published last year, 78 different deities, with the names of God, which are given in the Islamic tradition, and particularly in Sufism. And so it's a sort of way of marrying up the pagan primal traditions of mankind with the revealed religions and the Quran, which is also very connected to Christianity and Judaism. So that's what we're going to be doing, and I think it's very relevant. I mean, the war in Ukraine is still going on. There's been terrible fighting in Palestine. The Israeli army attacked a Palestinian refugee camp called Jenin. You know, that conflict is still simmering away. And there's still conflict in many parts of the world about religious and interfaith issues. So the purpose of these Philosophy Club meetings is to try and see what we can do to invoke these ancient wisdom energies and suggest to mankind that it'd be better if we spent our time making peace, making wisdom together, rather than war and violence, which is always about the suppression of someone's views. Okay, so let's start. Actually, let Sophia go first, because you're our guest all the way from Britain. And you choose a Tarot of the Gods, okay? Mm-hmm. Sophia's my middle daughter, come to join us in the Philosophy Club. Mm-hmm. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Ganesh.
Right, we've got Ganesh here. That's a great deity. The 8 of Fire in the book of the Tarot of the Gods. And Ganesh is a very important deity to everyone that loves Hinduism, but not only. He's also famous in Sikhism and in Jainism and Buddhism. They all revere Ganesh, and of course modern spiritual wisdom seekers like Ganesh. I have Ganesh in my car, and I've noted that whenever I have the little statue of Ganesh on the dashboard, I don't have accidents. In the Tamil language, he's called Pillai, meaning a child, or Pilaya, meaning a noble child. In Pali, the word Pilaka means also a young elephant. So the story of how Ganesh got an elephant's head is, of course, very famous. For those that don't know, I'll just tell you. He's the son of Shiva and Parvati, who loved each other very much. And one time Shiva, the god of sort of making stuff happen quickly, let's call it that, went off to sort out some problems and left his son, Ganesh, in charge of protecting his beloved wife, Parvati. But then, when he came back, a few weeks later, he'd forgotten that he'd left Ganesh outside. And he was so keen to get to see his wife that he wanted to rush in. But Ganesh, his son, blocked the way and said, "Thou shalt not enter this door. I've been tasked to keep this safe." And Shiva was so angry that he cut the head off the boy that was obstructing him without realizing it was his son. He had a momentary lapse of reason. He was so, overcome with desire to see his wife. Cut the head off his son. Now this tells us several things all at once. Firstly, that even gods are not omniscient and they make mistakes. So it's a teaching about humility. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that one should never let oneself be overcome by passion and emotion to the extent of hurting, wounding or killing another, in case it's your own son, which actually it probably is on the battlefield. We've all been incarnated many times, and you can't really shoot randomly at the enemy without killing your own son. So it's a teaching about non-violence. And then later, Ganesh was given his head back in the form of an elephant's head, because Shiva went out and found the elephant's head stuck it on the boy, and that's why in art he's shown with an elephant's head. An elephant always remembers, he's the wisest of animals, and can move obstacles. So in ancient India, before the lorries, before the trucks, they used elephants to move timber, everything. And they still do in many parts of India. So, so Ganesh stands for that. And the other thing I love about Ganesh is he's also a scholar. And he, in fact, takes down the whole Mahabharata as a dictation from the sage who dictated it to him. And he said, I'll do it for you, but only if you don't keep repeating yourself and making me go over. Just say it as it is. I'll write the whole thing down, word for word. And that is the origin of the Mahabharata, in which is contained the Bhagavad Gita, sacred scripture of the Hindus. So we owe to Ganesh that sacred scripture. So for all these reasons, he's very important. Right, now, which god of the, which quality of God would we associate him with? That's a very good question. Because is he, I think it's a toss-up between Calliope, because I've grouped the 11 divine names into the 99 names, so that each muse, the 9 muses, has 11 names of God attached. And in my love journal, the only journal in the world on the nature of love, it's divided into 9 sections. So I would say Ganesh is possibly under Calliope, meaning the all-powerful, the muse who gets stuff done, as Ganesh does. So that would be one option. And of those, one can think of several that would be appropriate. However, I think I'd like to say that I'd associate him more with Clio, who's the god, the muse of wisdom and knowledge, because Ganesh is, after all, the sage that brings the Mahabharata to us. And so I think I'm going to have Hafiz, the guardian, because Ganesh is a guardian of the goddess Parvati, and that was why he lost, he was wounded even by Shiva. So Ganesh can protect us even from wayward gods even the gods have their off days and become slightly demonic sometimes. This is the teaching here. And Ganesh is so powerful that he can act as a guardian. Hafiz. Now, this is a very important name of God in Sufism, because we all need protecting from, mostly from ourselves, because we all have off days, the guardian or protector. And it became a common name among Muslims, and so to be called Hafiz is a very good thing. In fact, one of the greatest poets of Islam, Hafiz, is a magical Sufi poet from Shiraz in Iran, and he's given this name because, as a great poet, he's a guardian to the Palace of Wisdom, just as Ganesh was. And Hafiz is also the name of the guardian of the temple of Mecca, which is, the sacred shrine that all Muslims go to on pilgrimage, and that person is called the Hafiz. It's also someone who's committed the whole of the Quran to memory. If you can remember the entire Quran, I wish I could, but sorry, my memory is very Kali Yuga-ish. One can't anymore in this life remember clearly. At the current time of humanity, we live such relatively short and violent lives that it's very difficult to remember. But there are still many Muslims who are called Hafiz because they've remembered the entire Quran, and I deeply respect them. Also, in the Christian world, some people remember the entire Bible. In my great-grandfather's generation, they could remember the whole Bible because it was the only book they ever read. You know, my problem is I've read a million other books and therefore can't remember them all. Usman, who was a caliph after Muhammad died, related that the Prophet said, "The best person among you is he who has learnt the Quran and teaches it." By which Muhammad is saying, you know, it's not your power, your strength, your might, your muscles, your sword, your money, your wealth. It's, do you remember the words of God? That's what makes you the best guardian. And that's why I've done a commentary on the entire Quran. So it's in electronic memory on my website. I don't know if that counts and makes me a Hafiz. I would like to think it does, because I believe in the power of the Quran and its protective influence for mankind, but only if it's interpreted right, which is what I've tried to do in the Quran, in my commentary. Sometimes it's usual for blind men and women to commit the Quran to memory and to be known as Hafiz because they remember it by reciting it. So anyway, there we are. Hafiz, I would say, the guardian or protector is Ganesh, and it's the same function in both these religions. That's why I'm saying, as a philosophy club, we should be focusing on what is common and universal to all these religions, not emphasising what's separate. You know, in India today, there are Hindus that say the Muslims are all, you know, wicked heretics and stuff, and vice versa. The Muslims think Hindus are wicked heretics. I would say there are wicked heretics who are both Hindu and Muslim, but there are great pious souls in both. The point is to get the quality of soul that resonates with truth and to become a guardian of light. And the point of these teachings is so that we ourselves internalise them. We become, you know, the Ganesh of this day, and we're not afraid of anyone who tries to steamroller through. And you know, that's why I respect the Ukrainians who are defending their land against a vicious attack for no justifiable reason. They're the guardians of their culture at the moment. Right, okay, so that's our first one. Right, over to you, sir. You choose a divine name.
The Originator.
Okay. The Originator. Ha. Now, that would be like the core, the source, the origin. Yeah.
Hey, I can find it 2 times.
Ah, there are 2?
Yes, Originator, the creator, and just Originator.
Okay, that's going to be fun. Let me just see if I can track down the equivalent in the. Let's have a look. I think it might be in Urania, that one, because science deals with, you know, Big Bang, origins. No, not in there. Hang on. Let me find. Does it give a number?
No, not that I can tell.
Right. Okay. And what was the other one, the version?
The originator, the creator.
Right, the creator is Al-Khaliq, which was, that's a different one. Is there one called the beginner? Al-Mubdi. Because that might be another translation for it.
Let's see. Ah, there's other two, the creator too.
Mm. The originator and the beginner are the same thing, aren't they? I think that would be it.
Beneficent, almost.
Yeah, it must be. Okay, let's assume that's it, right?
Okay.
Can I see the, where is it? The originator?
Over here. And over here. And third time somewhere over here.
No, I think it's that one. I think that's Mubdi, Al-Mubdi. We'll take it as that, okay? The beginner. So, why is God the beginner? Well, because he creates the universe and he creates every individual thing in the metaphysical realm of thought, intention. He speaks things into being. This theology, which is Islamic Judeo-Christian, is very ancient Egyptian actually, because God speaks things into being in Egypt. And the job of the sage or seer is to hear the inner words, which are creative, and the sounds themselves are creative, as I've explained in my Qabalah runes book. And so, why does God create? Why does he originate anything? Because it is good. This is what is said in the Islamic teachings. In Ibn Arabi, who was the great sheikh, he says that God creates mankind so that we may know and love God. God is our creator so that we can bear witness to God's beauty and magnificence. It's a kind of mirroring effect, creation, as as Ibn Arabi explains it. This is why the seeker of knowledge, always their first duty is to know themselves, because by knowing yourself, as in the Delphic Oracle, then you can find the hidden face of God speaking to you through the veils of being. Now, the origination of something is very important. I know as a historian and as a medical thinker, philosopher, that to cure anybody you have to know the origin of the disease, the illness. So God is like the master physician that wants us to know the origin of things. You know, why is country X acting so crazy, and what's going on? What's the origin of its sociological malfunction that it's invaded another country? Why is this class? Why did the very rich in Britain do Brexit? Psychologically, what was the origin of that? We can't heal the mistake of Brexit till we know its origin. So a good doctor, and I've been to Kos, where Hippocrates came from, he invented this idea in medicine that you look for the cause, the etios, the origin of the disease. Then you try and cure it with a mixture of herbs, dreams, music, and right living regimen, it's called. So that's why, also as a historian, I know that history is about origins. Endless essays have been written by history undergraduates called The Origins of World War I, or The Origins of World War II. Who was responsible? Was it the Kaiser? Was it the British? Was it British imperialism? Was it capitalism? You know, etc., etc. History is the study of origins. And that's why I love it. That's why I wrote a doctoral thesis as a historian, because I want to know the origins of everything, trace it all back, and try and resolve it. That's why I'm a peace historian. Why did the British and the Dutch go to war in the 17th century? Well, their empires clashed, rivals, you know. What was that about? Greed. The Dutch were incredibly intelligent, had a huge empire of scientists, and but the British wanted to catch up. So they captured New York from the Dutch. So this rivalry was going on. But then we ended it and made peace, and we all, joined the post-World War II project of making a peaceful European Union. Britain had a brief blip, but it's coming back. So that's why history is about the study of origins. Time is connected with origins because as you go back in time, you can see the origin of everything. Every life form has an origin. Its conception, its birth. And then there's the evolution of life forms that fascinate me. I've studied anthropology and looking for the origin of our human forms. Where do we come from? And then where did the soul come in? I accept Darwinian evolution. Physically we descended from hominid apes, like bonobos in the forests of Africa. But where did my soul come from? Is that not something divine? Did that evolve? There are many questions here that I don't know all the answers to. I've written books about it, but my job as a philosopher is to ask the questions. What I do know, this is why I love God, is that one day I'm going to get to the Heavenly Library and be able to ask directly the questions and say, well, okay, come clean. What is the origin of human beings? Where do our souls come from? Why do some incline towards evil? Why do some incline towards good? What's the fairy dust that was sprinkled on these early hominids 4 million years ago to make them stand upright and go, oh, I can talk, I can think, wow, It's interesting, I've been studying that the role of aesthetics in that. Homo sapiens evolved, we appreciated beauty, apparently, and we were making beautiful objects, 75,000 BC, found in the Blombush cave in South Africa, of artwork. So our ancestors fell in love with each other and with beauty and with nature. I think animals have a sense of beauty too. I think when birds sing at sunset, there's no reason for that. They're just singing praise to the Creator in their own way. They probably think of the Creator as a giant bird in the sky, But they're aware of the beauty somehow. So I think that's when the Quran says that God is the originator. What it's saying is that God is the originator of all beauty, all kindness, all justice, all truth, all wisdom, all holy scriptures, all sacred texts, all prophetic insights that have ever been. Now that's pretty awesome. Yes, and so we should honour this name, the originator. Okay. Now the next question is, which God is that going to be related to? Well, there's only one. I think the one that immediately comes to mind, of course. Has to be Brahma. Because Brahma is the god of beginnings and originations and the creator of everything. Brahma plays the same role in the Hindu and also the the other Indian-based religions like Buddhism and Jainism and Sikhism. And Brahma is the god of Indian intellectuals. I've met many great philosophers from India over the years. My best friend in Britain, this professor, has been of Hindu studies. He's an expert on, Hindu philosophy. And Radhakrishnan, the first president of India, was a great expert on the Upanishads, and they are the texts of Brahma. They describe how God created the human form, why, and the human mind, the intellect. And it's to find out truth, it's to find out what is it to know yourself. So it's exactly the same kind of philosophy that Ibn Arabi and Sufism has. God creates everything in order to set up a hide and seek game, and then goes and hides inside us all. It's quite clever actually. So a lot of people are out there looking for God, up in the sky, is he in the oceans, is he on another planet, is he in another world? When God is hiding inside us all the time, says the Upanishads. God is the I, the self, within each of our thinking. but it's not the self that thinks egotistically, you know, I'm great, I'm superb, I'm the most beautiful, or whatever. No, it's the little small quiet self that when you're falling asleep at night, you feel inside your heart. That's Brahma, the creator, who's lodged inside each one of us. And it's not only Hinduism that reveres Brahma, it's also Judaism, because the other god that comes to mind, of course, is Yahweh, as the creator, the beginning god. But actually Yahweh is accompanied by other deities, the Elohim. There's an argument the Elohim are the creator gods, because it's in the beginning the Elohim create heavens and the earth. And they would be called the gods and goddesses in normal translation of that word. And they have a card, the Elohim. But why I say that Judaism also worships the beginning, the source, the originator, is because the Bible always reveres the creator. It's one of the names of God in Judaism, in Hebrew. And Isaac Luria, who was one of the greatest Kabbalists in Judaism, like Ibn Arabi was for Sufism, Isaac Luria was for Qabalah. I've written about him in my books. He said exactly the same as the Upanishads. He said, God didn't create the world by kind of like sort of big expansion, throwing it out there and then vanishing up into the skies where we can't find him. God created the world by taking his eternal, infinite immensity and contracting it down into matter. God is like the invisible dark energy that compacts through gravitational forces us in our forms into matter, or mass, as Einstein called it. God is the genius that invented E equals mc squared and provides the energy for that. So God is hiding inside every little grain of matter, said Isaac Luria. Thanks to Einstein, we know that mass is just energy times the speed of light squared. In my fingernail is enough energy of God force to light the world for many years to come, you know, if we could tap into it. But that is the God force that is hiding inside matter, said Isaac Luria. And the duty of the sage is to then contract your ego or self down to become as nothing. And only then can you get in touch with that within you, because God is hiding inside all of us. God is the secret of secrets within us all. Jesus knew that. So when people said, who are you then? He said, well, you know, obviously I'm a son of God, like you know, we all are. He had that same God-intoxicated knowledge. Another one that did is Spinoza, who was Jewish in Amsterdam, in Holland, later in the 17th century, who said God is in all time and all space and all matter. These are extensions of that God force. Interesting study whether Spinoza had read Isaac Luria. They lived about the same time. Did he know about this theory? You know, research is still needed on how the Qabalah fed into modern science, because Spinoza is the beginning of modern scientific philosophy. Anyway, all this is the originator. And I'm saying as a philosopher, if only our thinkers on this planet, whether you're Hindu or Jewish or Muslim or any other, or scientific, could focus on these common, like, topographies of creation. You know, it's so much more interesting than blowing things up. That's really childish. That's like kids. Angry, ill-brought-up kids in a nursery, you know, pulling each other's hair and knocking each other's creations down. We really have to grow up out of that. And the best way to praise the Creator is to therefore praise the creations. And that means every tribe, every nation, every language, every culture, every human on this planet, every animal, they're part of the divine creation. So we should honour and respect and try and understand them. And as we do, we'll understand ourselves better. So that would be I think Brahma and the originator go together. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay, your turn. You choose another god and we'll see what comes up. Oh, wow. Oh, yes. Well, I don't have favourites, but he is one of my favourites. Thank you. So this is Thoth. Can I just hold it up to the camera?
Yes, you can.
Cheers. So this is Thoth, who's the ancient Egyptian god of wisdom. And I love him ever since I discovered him. Because as a scribe, teacher, philosopher, you know, I'm a disciple of Thoth over many lifetimes, probably. He is the four of air in this tarot of the gods, which are set out in the form of the four elements, earth, air, fire and water. Now he's an air god because intellectuals like me and Thoth, our line manager, we love thinking, we love air, because it enables you to connect everything up. And he was seen as a bird, an ibis, which again hints to the air aspect of the intellectual. He can fly to the highest point and see everything. And that's what Thomas Aquinas said that intellectuals do. We fly up high. Or St. John the Divine was identified with an eagle because of that same thing. A scholar can see from the highest point. And it was fun flying back from Britain to France because you can see everything from the plane. Now Thoth is really important, and in my tarot of the gods I've only really scratched the surface, but I think he's really important. I think he was originally a moon god known as Khonsu, and he was very famous in the first ages of Egypt's rise to greatness. Egypt had more temples and temple schools than any other culture in the history of mankind, even than India. Per square mile of Egypt, there were more temples. Egypt was devoted to learning, and of course they invented hieroglyphs, meaning sacred writing, to get across these profound teachings, which they often used in symbolic form. He was the scribe to the gods, just as Ganesh was to the Hindu gods, as we saw. He was depicted holding an ankh, which is the Egyptian symbol for life, and he was credited with the invention of writing and Egyptian hieroglyphs. So all priests and sages and scholars and philosophers of Egypt began their daily prayers with a prayer to Thoth. And all the Greeks that used to go to Egypt to study, like Plato and Pythagoras and Orpheus, and others of similar Egyptian students of Egyptian thought, they married up their thought with Greek thought, and that was the beginning of philosophy, really. The Greeks decided that Thoth was the inventor of astronomy, astrology, the science of numbers, mathematics, geometry, surveying, medicine, botany, theology, civilized government, writing, reading, and oratory. And he was credited with the invention of the 365-day calendar that we use now. So the Greeks, who were in love with knowledge also, they said, well, he must be like our Hermes, because Hermes was a messenger between the really powerful gods on high and humanity. Hermes brought messages to us that need them. And he would always turn up and save the day if there was a crisis, like when Persephone was kidnapped by Hades into the underworld. It was Hermes that discovered where she was. Because he had clairvoyant seeing, he could see everywhere, and he could hear everything. He was the messenger of the gods. So the Greek sages, and we don't know who among them, decided, and this was a really early kind of development in interfaith harmony, that Hermes and Thoth were the same god. So they called him Hermes Trismegistus. And there's a wonderful literature called the Hermetic writings that have survived from ancient Egypt.